And we're back on the program. This is the PCC Multiverse. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast. Thanks so much for listening, especially in times like this week. We truly cannot thank you enough for being part of the program. And it's going to be another great week in the NFL. Week 5. People are starting to sort out their teams in the NFL, and also as well, they're starting to figure out their teams in fantasy. Some are already hitting the panic button, and I know a lot of them are already hitting the hotline and trying to get a hold of this man right here I have on with me today. He is Tyler Baker from ffpaydirt.com and also as well the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I am very well. And yes, people are panicking a little bit. It's still,
Tyler, help me.
It's still kind of early in the season. If you've, hit some bumps in the road, don't freak out too much. But if you are, 1-3 or Lord forbid 0-4, you are going to have to start making some changes. So I have had quite a few people hitting me up about trades and what guys to be targeting moving forward and what guys to cut bait on. So there's a lot of questions, and I'm happy to answer all of them.
Well, obviously it goes without saying because people are looking forward to having the momentum at the end of the season because that momentum could be carried into the playoffs.
Yes, but you need to make the playoffs first. And there's been so many times where I've made it into the playoffs with just over a 500 record, and that's really not that unheard of. Just make it to the playoffs. If you can just make it to the playoffs, you give yourself a really good shot of winning your league.
Oh, that's awesome indeed. And once again, it is Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast. You can catch it today, right now. You can grab it right after you hear this show. It's going to be on Apple Podcasts, Libsyn, Overcast, and Player.fm. And also as well, he has new shows that drop every Tuesday and Saturday. So I know there's a lot of good stuff coming up for your Saturday show. So yes. I won't delve into too much on that. But what are some of the things that folks on this show that want to get a taste of what's coming up on your Saturday show, what do they need to know, or what do they need to start planning now in regards to Week 5 in the NFL?
Well, on my Tuesday show, I go over the guys that you want to target on the waiver wire. That is very important, especially if you're trying to correct your team. If your team is not where you want it to be, the waiver wire is really the best way to do that. I also help people negotiate trades. What guys are trending? Like this week, I'm encouraging people to start targeting T.Y. Hilton. Get T.Y. Hilton on your team. Andrew Luck, he is practicing again. So a lot of T.Y. Hilton owners and a lot of Dante Moncrief owners have not gotten much production out of those guys. So they're probably willing to sell them cheap. And so you can make a trade and pick up one of those guys, ride it out for another week, maybe two at the most, and then Andrew Luck will be back. And their offensive line will be as close to healthy as it can be by that point. So you can expect a lot more production in a couple of weeks from T.Y. Hilton and Dante Moncrief than there has been seen earlier in the season. So I worked a couple of trades this week where I got rid of Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald is riding hot right now, but the Cardinals' offensive line is a Band-Aid. It is a Band-Aid away from completely collapsing with a very much aging Carson Palmer. So that offense, I think, is poised to just collapse. So just things like that. And going into this weekend, there are some games that I'm going to be watching that are going to be pretty interesting. The Chargers and the Giants play. They're both 0-4. I think they're better than 0-4 teams. So they do play in New York. So that's going to be one to really, really see who is going to emerge from that. And is it crazy that the Bills are leading the AFC? I mean, they're ahead of the Patriots in that division. Like, that is just insane. So this football season has been really weird.
Who'd have thunk that? I tell you what.
Who'd have thunk that?
If you've got money in Vegas, I should say, you definitely are looking good if you've bet on the Bills, at least right now at the moment.
Which nobody did.
No, which nobody did indeed. But I do want to ask one thing, and then I'll let you finish off with everything as far as what's going on that you want to talk about. One thing as far as what team, as far as overall, do you want to go in on as far as for fantasy owners, and what team do you really want to stay away from? Although I think I probably know that answer on the last one.
Yeah, well, there's been some flashes in Houston with their young quarterback. I'm staying away from that. I watched that game film. He didn't look that great. The numbers were there. They put up 57 points. Will Fuller, there was a nice timing route. But other than that connection between him and Fuller, I'm just not buying. Even though Fuller had 2 touchdowns, the numbers were there. I'm just not buying it. Again, I think Arizona is in trouble. I think the Steelers are overrated, but we'll see. Baltimore, the Ravens are just in an absolute mess. That offense is really pathetic right now. As far as going into this next week, if you have players that are Tennessee Titans, you're worried because it doesn't look like Marcus Mariota is going to play. And in Oakland, Derek Carr has a back injury. It was listed as 2 to 6 weeks. Everywhere that I'm hearing, it's closer to 2 weeks. And from what I understand, he's progressing really well. So that might not be as big of a deal as we had thought. So those might be some players that you could buy cheap on too.
Well, I think it's going to be well, if I may, I think it's going to be based off of their record. If they win the next 2, then I think they might give him at least another extra week off.
They could. And EJ Manuel, when he came in relief on Sunday, he didn't look that bad. Like he looked, because don't forget, EJ Manuel was a 1st-round pick, and he looked good enough that I think that he could operate that offense. Michael Crabtree is practicing. Amari Cooper is practicing. So they could be pretty much healthy. At least the supporting roles around him, around EJ Manuel, could be healthy the next couple games.
Fair enough. At least, well, you didn't say Cleveland and Miami, and those were the teams that I was thinking that you were going to pop out there as far as people you want to teams you want to stay away from. But even if that's the case, Miami might have a bounce back week this week.
They could. And to be honest with you, matched up against Tennessee on both sides of the ball, Tennessee is reeling a little bit. I had expected to see a bounce back last week. If it doesn't happen this week, I'm hitting the panic button. But it looks like Ajayi's practicing in full. He did have the day off today. It's Thursday. He had the day off. That's just kind of a management thing that they do with him. He's going to miss practices. I'm expecting him to come back. Now, as far as Cleveland, I had expected a lot more from Cleveland this season. They just really can't seem to get it together. They can't seem to get Isaiah Crowell rolling. And that's something that Hugh Jackson came out and talked about this week, but he said that before. We need to get Isaiah Crowell involved. So we'll see. They need to do something. I'm expecting Ricardo Lewis probably to get more involved in the game plan. He was kind of a darling of training camp, and they really need help at receiver. Kenny Britt just doesn't care. And Corey Coleman is hurt. He's on IR. So somebody's going to have to emerge in that offense. But Duke Johnson has been a really bright spot in that offense, doing everything, catching the ball, running the ball. So for fantasy purposes right now, Duke Johnson is the only guy you want. I personally am buying low on Crowell. I'm picking up shares of Crowell. I'm not advising my listeners to do it because I haven't seen enough to really give advice to someone else to do it. But if I see any kind of a spark from Crowell and this Sunday, then I'm going to suggest buying low on him as well.
Any last thoughts on the way out on week 5 in the NFL? And then also, can you tell everybody about your great site, your great Facebook group, and also your awesome and outstanding podcasts?
Well, I love our Facebook group. And if anyone out there has a lineup question or a trade question or anything like that, because it is so difficult to give broad advice. I don't know, especially when I'm doing my podcast, I don't know the scoring in your league. I don't know who's available on the waiver wire. I don't know what your team looks like. So I give advice the best that I can. But if you want tailored advice to your team, for your league, get on the Facebook group, and you can go to Facebook, get on the search bar and just type in Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast, and you'll see the discussion group. Join that group, and myself and a couple of trusted colleagues will help you make the best decisions for your fantasy football team.
That's awesome indeed. Once again, it is Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast. You can catch his podcast every Tuesday and Saturday, or if you wanted to listen to it right now after our show airs. That's going to be on Apple Podcasts. That's also as well Libsyn and Player.fm, and also as well Overcast.fm. Catch his great site, ffpaydirt.com, and of course the Facebook group Fantasy Football Paydirt Podcast. Once again, I'll tell you what, Tyler, it's going to be a great weekend in the NFL, and there's no one better to cover it than you, my friend. We will be back on Monday's show to cover it all and see what happened, and hopefully I will go 4-1.
I hope so, my friend. It's always good talking to you, and God bless you guys in Las Vegas right now.
Thank you, my friend. It's truly great to hear you again. It's great to appreciate all the love that you're sending out, and as always, we truly appreciate you being part of the PCC multiverse.